Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that when we examine Jon and Dave's attempt and goals for the Star Wars franchise, that it is going to be ever evolving. We have a lot of announcements that are going to be held for D23 later this year, with some announcements now taking place at Star Wars Celebration. This is a new strategy being played by Disney to really kind of keep the hype leveled out throughout the remainder of this year. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, there's been a lot of things happening between the Disney executives, the board, Bob Iger, and this big shakeup that's been happening for the past number of months now over fixing Marvel, Star Wars, and really kind of regulating the Disney parks when it comes to prices and stuff like that. There's also a lot more to actually say about when it comes to the roadmap of the Star Wars franchise. Now, we know that obviously Kathleen Kennedy has only been creating more issues with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, as those have been going through a lot of delays and setbacks and problematic situations with crew getting fired and replaced by new ones. And so, where we are today, given that we are, slowly but surely getting closer to the middle point of 2023, they really are trying to shape themselves up, and Disney's trying to really kind of just organize Lucasfilm as a better company. Now that brings us to what Disney recently got Lucasfilm to do when it comes to fine-tuning and right-sizing their roadmap for the future of course, everything Star Wars. Be it, of course, shows, movies, books, and novels, and video games, whatever have you. There's a lot of things that are actually getting cancelled, and we're going to be talking about a lot of that right now. Now, that brings us to exactly what Bob Iger recently approved, and exactly how it's going to impact the roadmap. Now, given that now Disney and Lucasfilm are beginning to save more announcements for D23 this year, or keep the hype up for 2023, it's noted that currently one of the recent developments has a lot to do with how Lucasfilm is getting ready to cancel many Star Wars TV shows to clear way for more quality-driven projects. Now, this was a decision made between the board of Disney and Bob Iger, and that this was also, of course, including some Star Wars films in the process. Now, most of these cancellations had to do with previously greenlit projects that were launched by Kathleen Kennedy when she held more creative power, which consisted of High Republic shows and movies, sequel trilogy-era live-action shows, as well as a spin-off of the Acolyte series and spin-offs related to Rian Johnson's trilogy that are now officially getting cancelled by Bob Iger and the board and will go into full effect by this June. The main reason of canceling these shows had to do with the fact that they were taking up so many slots for the remainder of the decade of Jon and Dave's work that is now paved. Additionally, however, these shows were planned to completely rid of George Lucas's vision and his philosophy of the Star Wars franchise. Let me pause here quick before I get to the next big segment. Is that basically Kathleen Kennedy was creating her own Star Wars universe, so to speak, and it was going to consist of High Republic content, sequel trilogy lore, as well as, of course, Rian Johnson trilogy spin-offs, all in the form of shows, and also movies out there related to the High Republic. And let's not forget about the Acolyte spin-off series that got cancelled, that was already approved by Kathleen Kennedy years ago, before the Acolyte even went into production, which I thought was insane. So thankfully, Iger is putting a rest to all of this. This is all going to go into full effect by this summer, and so this really is probably one of the biggest moves that Bob Iger made to really pave way for Jon and Dave's work. Now, we also know that Disney's very open-minded. They don't want to just rely on Jon and Dave. They want to get new creators to hop on board, new writers to be involved in upcoming Star Wars shows, either as main ones or co-writers, whatever have you. We already know that Tony Gilroy is hopping on board of a new show with Jon and Dave, codenamed Blue Point, which is going to be basically a live-action adaptation of Rogue Squadron, the video games back in the day from like the 1990s or the early 2000s. It's going to be something like that, and it's going to recreate some of the fan-favorite moments from the original trilogy space battles. We talked about that about 2 days ago, give or take. Now, the thing about this, too, that's very surprising is that you can obviously tell that Bob Iger is getting very worried about his scenario. Alright, so basically we talked about this too, that the board has been very unhappy with Bob Iger. They want him out by next year. And by next year, we're talking about like the early beginning segment of 2024, the first quarter, so to speak. And so basically, if he doesn't shape up, and if he does not improve both brands of Marvel and Star Wars, he's out. But regardless, Bob Iger wants to actually get out of Disney by 2024 anyways, so it is a race against time, so to speak. Now, on to the next big thing here that's even all the more intriguing is that apart from this, Kennedy wanted to completely actually rebrand Star Wars into something new by taking away the original magic and only catering and, of course, to obtaining new fans strictly and ignoring the true fans. Disney knew that this would break Star Wars forever and decided it was time to end all these projects in one sitting. The Acolyte spin-off was aimed to star actress Brie Larson as one of the Jedi gods as a character named Maeve. That too got cancelled by Disney as they have not been having a great business relationship with Brie since the Marvels. Jon and Dave are about to announce a full slate of new shows that will take over Kennedy's by the end of this year to expand the roadmap greatly for fans who have been around for decades. So here's the other deal about this, is that we also know that Bob Iger is really attempting to really just focus on the fans that have supported this franchise for many decades. We're talking about the original trilogy fans, the prequel trilogy fans, and even the fans that may have been more or less only into the comics and the books and stuff like that. And that's what they really want to pertain to. They don't necessarily want to rely on sequel trilogy era fans only. They want to focus on where the fans all began and where they mostly came from, you know, in more past times, so to speak. So Bob Iger is on a roll, I think. I think that this was a great move. One little update, guys, about the Lando Calrissian series. That too is not looking good, by the way. In case you guys did not know, that too was a Kathleen Kennedy-driven project that Jon and Dave may or may not take over elements of that. It really all depends. But right now, Donald Glover is so tied up with work, and this show keeps getting delayed year by year. It's likely, even if it does go into production, we're not going to see it until 2026, the earliest. I mean, there's a lot of problems with it. The overall story they're trying to figure out, so we'll keep you guys updated on that in the months to come. But I would like to hear what you guys have to say about Bob Iger's recent decision to cancel all these different scenarios over, you know, Kathleen Kennedy's attempt at a new Star Wars universe and everything related to that. Let me know what you guys have to say about that. Do you think it was the right call? Obviously, I think it was, and I'm sure more than 90% of you guys out there will agree. And the fact that they are not just going to rely on Jon and Dave, they're also going to focus on Tony Gilroy, who has been very beloved, you know, as a writer for Andor, and they're getting him on board with more relatable projects like that. So anyways, guys, you know, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I'll catch you guys next time.